Mac Cornish, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for
We're
having
glad
me.
to have you here, and we're excited that you have a new record out. Can you tell us a little bit about it and kind of get into your background a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Mac Cornish. I'm from Northern California, but I live in Portland, Oregon now. And I put out my debut record on May 3rd. It was an independent self-release, but also a vinyl release for Jackalope Records, which is a vinyl-only record label through the folks who put on Jackalope Jamboree in Pendleton, Oregon. So I was really stoked to be working with like a local Oregon team per se, which is really exciting, and also glad to still be putting it out myself in terms of digital and stuff like that. It's definitely like a very DIY record. Like I recorded it in a studio, but it was recorded by a friend of mine. All the folks who play in my band, they're called the Hens, and they're all my friends. So it definitely was kind of like a labor of love. And yeah, we recorded it last August, so we got it out in under a year, which is
That's amazing.
kind of wild because it's so much work. It's been a crazy last 6 months, like getting all the balls rolling and getting it all together. But yeah, I'm just so stoked to have it out, really proud of how it turned out, and excited to just start touring and getting in front of people.
So this is your first record? Because I've seen the singles that you have out on like Spotify and all that.
Yeah, so I put out a record like a few years ago that was not really like, I think at the time I was kind of calling it a debut record, but it was a lot of songs I wrote when I was like a teenager, and I'm still really proud of those songs and really cherish the memories around that record. But I wanted to put something out that was like more professional and more me now, because I think for a lot of like my musical career, or just really like my musical life, like I've tried to be other things and tried to be other people, and I feel like this is really the first record where I'm like, I'm gonna be myself.
Yeah.
And that's why I wanted this to be my debut, and I ended up taking that record down from streaming services. Still on Bandcamp if you want to hear it, it's out there. But I wanted this to be kind of my foot forward into the world and be like, this is me. This is what, Mac Cornish sounds like. So I'm calling it my debut, even though I've been releasing music since I was like 16 years old.
Wow,
So,
16?
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Did you come from like a musical type of family, or is it just you just started when you were 16 with like your friends, or?
It's funny. So my parents, neither of them. So my mom was like in choir, but she wasn't really musical other than that. Like she always sang. We always like listened to music as a family. We're definitely like a music fan family. And my siblings were also in choir and musical theater, but I was never into that. I always hated like choir and plays and all that. I was like, oh, that's so like I was like trying to be a cool kid or whatever. So no, my family wasn't really that musical, but my dad was always showing me like 60s and 70s music growing up.
Yeah.
And I just got like really infatuated with classic rock and southern rock, and I started playing guitar at 14, and kind of the rest was history. I mean, I started jamming with my friends, and then I was like, oh, this is exactly what I want to do with the rest of my life. And then when I was 16, I started singing a lot, and then started songwriting right around then. And yeah, it's like kind of just since then, I'm like, I don't know if there's anything else I could do.
It's interesting you got into like the classic rock, and usually with like teenagers they start out like Taylor Swift and then they go up from there. Our daughter is like that too. It's like Addie, she just started getting into like records.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So her and her friends have discovered the going downtown into the record shop and flipping
yeah.
through the records.
She's
"What
like,
is
have you
this?"
heard this band? We're like, yeah. We
Wait,
listened to it when we were
There's
like
this
your
one called
age.
like Led Zeppelin. Have you heard of this one?
We're
He's
gonna
like,
listen to this song.
Totally.
and then she
Yeah.
finds my old CDs and like, look at this one. And their friends are luckily the car that she inherited has a CD player still in there.
So she can
Oh,
take
yeah.
all of
Yeah.
her own, like, yeah.
So
I did the same thing to my parents'
It's
CD
a big deal,
collection.
yeah.
Yeah. I think when you're really young, you're kind of like, ooh, the stuff that my parents like is lame. Like, I want to be different, and like, I listened to like a lot of like, like early 2000s, like rock bands, like the Strokes and like kind of stuff like that growing up. And I was like kind of into like some like kind of LA punk bands and that. And I really wanted to be like, I wanted to be different than my siblings, different than my parents. But then I think like I grew up like listening to like Led Zeppelin and Allman Brothers Band and like stuff like that. And it just kind of clicked for me when I was like 13, 14. And I was like, oh, this is like this is it. This is like who I am. I grew up listening to this and I can't deny it anymore. This is what I love.
Just embrace it. Like
I really embraced it. And yeah, I started collecting records. That was like a big thing for me. And that, and like my dad just started showing me more music. And then I kind of just, with the internet, you have this like whole like archive of music at your fingertips. So I was discovering music and continue to from that time period that, my dad grew up in and my mom grew up in that they've never heard before because it's all at my fingertips. Yeah. And, I got into genres that they aren't into as much. Like my parents aren't really into country music at all. Like country's definitely been kind of my own thing. Like they like Southern rock.
But they like your stuff, right?
I think so. I hope so.
They tell me they like it.
It's funny. Like I definitely, I did not grow up in like a country loving family. So I think when I started really doing country music, my parents were like, where did this come from? Yeah.
That's your rebellion. You're like, I'm going to go do country, Mom. Exactly. Now I show you.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, it's funny though. So my mom, both my parents are from Northern California, where I grew up. My dad grew up in a small town called Menlo Park, which is now the bustling Silicon Valley, but it was very different in the 60s and 70s. Everything basically before like the dot-com boom and all the tech there, like the Bay Area was a very different place. And my mom grew up in San Francisco, but my grandpa, her dad, had a ranch in Northern California, a cattle ranch. So she would spend every weekend up on the ranch, breaking horses, working cattle, doing that thing. So she had this kind of very like cowgirl upbringing.
Yeah.
So I grew up with that. I grew up riding horses. I grew up going to the ranch all the time. Like I definitely was like bona fide horse girl in every way. I was like that weird girl in the class who like just loved horses.
Do you want to see pictures of my horse?
Yeah, literally. Yeah. So it's funny. So like I grew up with like that, like kind of like what probably some people would be like, ooh, like country girl, whatever thing. Even though I grew up writing English, so I'm no cowgirl.
Horse is a horse.
Yeah, horse is a horse. But my mom was like not into country music. She listened to like The Who and Led Zeppelin and stuff like that. So even though I think there's like some of my roots, I guess, are kind of horse country adjacent. Like country was kind of my own. I don't know, kind of my own discovery, I guess, or kind of continuations of my parents' taste. Because a lot of the music that I grew up listening with them, like Led Zeppelin and Creedence Clearwater Revival and stuff like that is very country inspired.
Yeah.
Or like the Stones. I mean, the Stones are like get super country at points in their career. And like, so I think I just kind of dug deeper because I was so music obsessed as a child and kind of like not only dug into my roots of like, loving horses and loving like country and like Americana culture and then also loving that music and just kind of digging deep into all of it and being like, oh, like, who's this guy, Hank Williams? He's really good. Anyway, so.
So did you think in California you kind of stood out as far as the direction you were going into, more the country, like the type of roots with that, or is that something your friends and the people around you were kind of also into?
I definitely stood out, which is funny because, and we can talk about this more in an Oregon perspective too, but I think people think of the West Coast and they don't think about country music, even though it's the West.
Yeah.
And like culture, like country culture is actually like has huge roots on the West Coast. But definitely like I got really into country when I was living in San Francisco proper, when I in my like late teens, early 20s, finishing up college. And I was still pretty involved in like the punk scene at that point and like the indie rock scene in the Bay Area. And I was definitely like the only girl in the room wearing cowboy boots. Like, it was like I was the only one who was like dressing the way I dress and doing that. It was not cool at that time, but it was what I loved. But I still loved like punk music and indie rock and alt rock, whatever. So I definitely did stand out in that way. And that's kind of a big reason why I left San Francisco, because I was like, it doesn't really seem like there's a big enough country scene here for me to like go anywhere. Uh-huh. So I like tried to get involved with the country scene there. There's actually some really, really wonderful bands down there who are good friends of mine. Jacob Aranda and Sarah Gallagher make beautiful music. Andres Miguel Cervantes, Noel and the Deserters are just like a few names of some incredible artists there. But it's a small scene because the cost of living there is insane, as most people know about San Francisco and the Bay Area. And I just think that sort of kind of atmosphere financially does not cultivate a good music scene. So there's always going to be, amazing songwriters wherever you go. But I knew for me, if I wanted to, only work a few days a week and then focus on my music. I couldn't do that in San Francisco. I just couldn't. So I looked north because I lived in Portland before, like years ago when I started college. And so I kind of knew about some bands here, and I started doing more research on the country scene up in Oregon, and I was like, whoa, some cool stuff going on up there, and moved up here, and yeah, kind of the rest is history. I like found my people, and suddenly I wasn't the only girl in
That's awesome.
cowgirl boots anymore.
That. So when did you move up here then?
So I lived here 2018, 2020, like on and off when I was in college, and wasn't really doing, I was like doing music back then, but like not really what I'm doing now. Then moved back to San Francisco from 2020 to 2022, and then moved back up here in 2022. And I've been here, I guess, for
Year and a half. Maybe?
yeah, year and a half, almost 2 years in July. So almost 2 years. So
2022 doesn't feel like it's that long ago, but
it doesn't really feel that
how
long
old
ago.
You are.
well, thanks. The older I get,
Yeah, it's wild because for me it doesn't feel like that long ago, but how much has happened and like the person I am compared to who I was in 2022, I'm like, whoa, okay, I've been in Oregon for a bit now, and I was here a few years ago too. So, but it definitely feels like home now, and it feels like the right place to be for my music right now, which is really like what matters for me career wise. So,
do you think the move changed when you, as far as your sound goes? Did it change coming up, or did you find your sound kind of in California and you moved up here to match the kind of the vibe that you were looking for?
It's a great question. I think I was starting to find it in California, but I think I really found it when I moved up here because I was around people who loved the same music as me. Like I got really, like my senior year at college in San Francisco, I got so into like Laurel Canyon, like 60s California country, like Graham Parsons and his band, the Flying Burrito Brothers, and that kind of whole scene. And then kind of like almost like the country rock adjacent stuff like Jackson Browne and also like Bakersfield sound stuff, like, Buck Owens and all that stuff, and Wynn Stewart. And I knew I like really kind of wanted to do like a California country, like late 60s, but also kind of like also a little bit of like kind of a like Loretta Lynn kind of Nashville sound too. But no one really like knew, like the people I was hanging around in San Francisco, like no one knew that. No one was into that stuff. So coming up here and then suddenly meeting people who were like, oh my God, I love Graham Parsons, like, and being able to like talk to someone about like, the Byrds for like 2 hours, like that let me really like dive deep into what I loved and get players in my band who knew how to play like those bands because they'd listen to those bands. And like that honestly is what it's all about, because I can write songs like that as much as I want and kind of lean into that sound. But if the players in my band don't know that sound, then it's not gonna, it's not gonna sound how I want it to sound. So I think moving up here kind of like solidified the sound, if that makes sense.
Did you find the people in your band, are they all from Oregon? So did you find them when you moved here, or?
Yeah, so they all live in Oregon. They're not all from Oregon though, which is kind of funny. I think that's like a pretty like typical Portland trait that like a lot of people who live in Portland are not from Portland. It's like San Francisco in that way, but they've all lived here for a little bit. But I mean, my band is made up of my friends Bailey Warren, who's on guitar. He's the one from Portland. And then there's Trevor Stelflug, who's playing pedal steel. He's from Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. And then I have Jacob Miller on the bass. He's from West Virginia. And I have Hunter Maxon on drums, and he's from Ridgefield, Washington. So we're actually, all of us are from different states.
You just all met in Portland?
Yeah, and we just all like, I met Trevor and Jacob first just through like going to like honky tonk shows in Portland and being like, I need a band. And then they were like, yeah, like let's play for you. And then I met Bailey and then Hunter, and like just kind of worked. And
so you didn't put an ad out on paper, you actually kind of met them along the way.
I just met them organically, which is the dream. So yeah.
That's awesome. So I mean, yeah, that's one of the questions I had was like, how did these bands form? Is it just all friends that have grown up together, or is it like you put an ad in the paper and you're like, I need a drummer?
Want to join my band?
And it's like you interview 20 drummers and you find the perfect one.
Yeah. It can happen any of those ways. Like I've been in bands where I've like, when I was in college, I would like put something on like a clipboard, or it's not a clipboard, like a bulletin board, and be like, I'm looking for bandmates. And that's actually how I formed like my first backing band in Oregon when I was living here in college a few years back. But in high school, I formed all my bands just from like classmates and people I met at like shows and stuff. Yeah, but I've had a lot of backing bands. Like I had a backing band like right before this one, and I just like I've met so many wonderful folks along the way and played great music with so many people, but it just never felt right. I felt like people were getting the wrong thing from my music.
Like you're speaking a different language.
Yeah, I think people like will often see me or really just like any woman playing like emotional like acoustic music and be like, "Oh, you're trying to be like a Phoebe Bridgers or something." And I'm like, absolutely not. That's not what I'm trying to do. But people kind of want to put me in that box because they just see woman guitar and they want to just like put me in like kind of like this indie rock thing. And I'm like, no, I've actually really never listened to that music. That's not, and I don't dislike it, but I'm like really trying to do something particular. And I feel like when I met this band, they were like, oh yeah, like, yeah, you're trying to do like traditional country and like folk rock music. And I was like, yes, thank you for listening to me and like seeing me as like who I am and not like pushing to me what you're assuming I want to be. And I think that's what really clicked with this band is, well, I don't think there's any malice in any of the people I've played with before who were like hearing my music and interpreting it as they interpreted it. They still weren't interpreting it correctly per se. And I think I was still struggling to like interpret what I really wanted to sound like. And I think this was like perfect timing with this band where I realized really the sound I wanted, and they were just willing to like listen to me and also had like the proper taste in music and shared the same interests as me, where it was like, we're all stoked to like make this sort of music. Like this is the kind of music we want to make. So
how much of a control freak are you with the songs?
I mean, so I write all the songs alone, in terms of like songwriting, melody, chord structure. And I get like a pretty particular vision of kind of how I want things to go in my head, but I bring it to the band and they write their own instrumentation. Like I don't write the guitar solos. I don't write the pedal steel parts. Like I'm really like a songwriter, song crafter is kind of how I identify. I don't, I'm not, obviously I do some production stuff where I'm like, hey, you should solo here, or hey, like maybe the drums should do this here, but I'm not like, in terms of their parts, I kind of want them to like be themselves because
make it their own a little bit.
Yeah.
And see how it all blends together.
And I think that's kind of what's so great about the Hens as a band and as like, my band.
I love that name, by the way.
Thank you.
Especially when we heard you at the Salem Opry and you were talking about, like Mac Cornish and then the Hens. And I was like, oh my goodness. I thought it was cute.
Yeah, it's my whole life growing up, I would hear my mom on the phone and she'd be like, yeah, so my name's Laura Cornish, Cornish like the game hen. And so that's like in my brain, forever. So it ended up, I think Trevor, who plays pedal steel, thought of it, and it clicked, and it's great because they're all dudes, so it's like hilarious.
It's like, I'm gonna be a hen.
Yeah. Nice to meet you, I'm the hen.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, no, it's been, they're just such wonderful players and just such wonderful guys. Like they're really like some of my best friends. Like it's so easy to bring my songs to them and trust them with it because I love how they play. I love their taste in music. I love what they bring out of my songs, and they're not trying to like change me or make me anything else than what I am. And like, it's really all you can ask for in a backing band.
That's amazing.
So like, did you envision as you're going through, like, I'm going to have my own band or I'm going to be a solo for a while, and then all of a sudden you meet people and then you form like a band that way? Or is it like you had a vision from the start?
I've always liked playing with bands, and I think I always knew I wanted a band, but I'm also very comfortable playing solo too. So I kind of was just, I think like, as like the last backing band I had before this kind of dissipated and like didn't work out because I was just like, this isn't the sound I want. I was like open to finding another band. I'm like, I'm gonna just jam with people and like see what happens. And it just kind of like snowballed. Like really, we like jammed together and we're like, yeah, this sounds great. And we had like one show booked at Turn in Portland, and it was I think May 7th of 2023, so a little over a year ago. So we haven't really even been playing together for that long. And we played it and it went so well. And then we got asked to play Jackalope Jamboree, which I blew my mind because I was like,
Jackalope Jamboree, what's that?
It's a music festival out in Pendleton, Oregon.
Okay.
It's a
It sounds awesome.
In my brain, it's a pretty big deal because when I saw the lineup, I was like, oh my God, it's like Ryan Bingham and like, Margot Price and, people this year it's like Charlie Crockett and like Mike and the Moon Pies or Silverado, whatever you want to call them. Like big names in country that I've been looking up to for years. So when they asked me, I was like, little
You're like, me?
Like, what?
Me and my hens?
Yeah, exactly. So it was funny, like, it was like our first or second practice. I'm like, do you guys want to play Jackalope Jamboree with me? And they were like, yeah. And that was like our third show as a band.
You're like, it's going to be great. It's going to be great. It's all going to come together.
Yeah, and it was awesome. Like, it was so great. And I feel like it was just like, we just kind of knew. We were like, yeah, we're a band now, and this is great. And we've just been like gigging every month since, recorded the record. Like, I don't know. It's been so natural, so wonderful. Like, yeah, I cannot complain.
So sometimes you have to play on your own.
I do.
And it's I'm guessing it's a different sound, different feel for it.
Yeah. It's definitely more folky, which I love. Like I'm a huge fan of folk music, like and like acoustic stuff. Like that's a lot of what I listen to. So it's not really like sad when I have to play alone. Like it's kind of a fun, different thing I get to do. So I'm not ever like upset if my band can't make a gig and I have to play solo. It's just like an opportunity for me to do something a little different. But like to showcase like the dream sound for myself, I do like to have a backing band because I just love, I think like the music I really love the most is like has that instrumentation and support for the songwriting, because songwriting is like the most important thing for me as a creator, because that's what I do, But having that, like, having the pedal steel, the, lead guitar, drums, bass is like, for me, it's like bolstering and uplifting the songwriting into something that it can't be when it's alone. And I still believe in the power of my songs as solo songs because they're written to be solo. They are written to stand alone just as much as they're written to have a backing band played with them. But I just so appreciate what a band can make my songs sound like. And, I don't know if I have more fun playing with a band, but it is just a whole lot of fun.
Yeah. I imagine you feel a little bit different up on the stage, especially with the big audience. Mm-hmm. You're with a group of people that are helping you through it a little bit. Totally.
Yeah, it's definitely, I don't really get much stage fright anymore, but it is nice. Like if I mess up, I can kind of just like look at one of my bandmates and we like laugh about it.
It was your fault.
Yeah.
You were off by a beat.
Yeah. No, it's so fun playing with them, and we're just such good pals. So we're just laughing through the mistakes and whatever. Like it's just, I think we kind of roll with the punches in that way, which is really nice because you're never going to go up and play a perfect show. It's not possible. And it's nice to be able to like smile through it with your band and just know you're having fun and that the audience can like see that you're having fun and see that you're friends,
When we saw you, you were by yourself,
mm-hmm.
and our daughter had never heard your music before. And so we're sitting there, and all of a sudden you came on. You're this tiny thing that goes up there, and all of a sudden you open your mouth, and this like just such a powerful voice comes out. And our daughter was like, "Oh my goodness!" I'm like, "I know, she's amazing." And so it was really cool to listen to.
Oh,
so,
thank
and
you.
I love that every time you would go up and you would sing a song, you wouldn't just go straight into the song. You would give kind of like the origin story for each of the songs. Like, this is what inspired it. This is, you're going to hear this throughout the song and everything. So that was really cool because a lot of times, you hear people go up and they just go from song to song, but it's like you were bringing everybody into the fold and like giving us an opportunity to like see where you were coming from with the music. It just gave it a different feel. So it was really neat.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a cool experience.
Yeah. Yeah, I love storytelling, that's like really what songwriting is. And I love having the opportunity to talk between songs and be like, this is what this song is about. Like, this is who I am. Because sometimes songs aren't about me and aren't about my lived experience, but like
the one about your grandma.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my goodness. When just hearing that one and then all of a sudden you go into the song, I was like, oh, I love this.
Yeah, like it's so nice to be able to really give people, background on the song because you can listen to that song and like it's not like people know my grandma's name was Sylvia Ann, so when they're listening to the record they're like
who is this?
This is some crazy lady. Like it's like, well, she was my grandmother. So yeah, it's nice to be able to like tell. That's why I love performing live more than anything else, because it just gives me that opportunity to really like level with the audience and be like, this is who I am, this is what my songs mean to me, and then let them make whatever it means to them. And, I've had people come up to me and be like, oh, your song about your grandma, like I really empathize with that because blah, blah, blah. I think like talking about family stuff is a really kind of easy thing for people to connect with because, like, man, do we all have some sort of like trauma connecting to our family, right? Or just like some sort of like heavy family history that runs deep. And I think it was very healing for me to write about that a lot on this record. And I love whenever people say anything to me about their own experiences and how they connected to the songs through, their lived experiences with family or lovers or friends, whatever. I love to hear it. So
Is it kind of a cathartic experience when you go up there and you're singing these things that are personal to you? I mean, you practice, you go out to show after show, but still, are you able to take away from it the same thing as when you first wrote it?
absolutely. When I practice the songs in my room, like it's fun and all that, but when I get up on that stage and I'm just kind of like baring my heart to the world, like it feels so good. It feels so good to just tell the story. And yeah, it's so cathartic. And it's there's certain songs that I play, that I cried when I wrote them, or I teared up because they were so just so vulnerable and so expressive of exactly what I was feeling. And often those songs, when I go up and play them on stage, they still kind of tug at my heartstrings and I still tear up a little bit because every time I sing it, it's like reliving that and telling the world like this is how vulnerable I was in that moment. And that's really special for me. I'm a very emotional, sensitive person, so I like to get into that place and share that with folks.
Well, if you're a performing artist, that's kind of important to have. Being a emotional person and being able to kind of pour your heart out. That's a hard thing for most people that are looking at you from the audience to do. And so when you can get up there and do that, they kind of they feel a little bit something with that from
Like
their own
invokes a
experience.
feeling, yeah.
Totally. Yeah. It's I'm glad I can do it and share it for people because it does come rather easy to me. I've always been a dramatic, sensitive gal, so so I'm a songwriter.
Did you ever picture yourself as a 16-year-old kid like flipping through the records at a record store that one of these records could have been yours out there? Did you ever picture yourself having your own record back then?
Like, it's so hard to think back. Not really. I have pretty bad learning differences, and I really struggled in school, and I really struggled with learning music because music theory and all of that, like just numbers and all of that, just like does not compute in my brain. And I was in a lot of bands in high school, just playing like rhythm guitar, not really singing much. And I had some kind of bad experiences of people telling me like I wasn't good and I wasn't good enough, and all that, people putting me down. And looking back at it, people are just insecure and say stuff to you, and they were just as insecure as I was and all that. And I think there was a time in high school when I was a teenager where I kind of gave up and I didn't think that I would ever be able to write a good song. I'm such a perfectionist that when I first started songwriting, it was so hard for me because when you start songwriting, kind of the best advice I ever got was from like my music teacher / music mentor, Ronnie Crawford, in high school, like one of the most amazing people in my life. And he told me, you're going to write 1,000 terrible songs, so you better start now. And I think about that still almost every time I write a song, because it doesn't mean you're going to write 1,000 terrible songs and then write a good song. It means in your life, you're going to write 1,000 crappy songs. And you just need to start digging through because you're going to write duds and you're going to write good songs. And it's just all part of the process of getting better. And when I was younger, I really struggled with that because I wanted to be good right then. I wanted to be great. I wanted to be perfect. And I still struggle with that now. It's why songwriting is a slow process for me and such a vulnerable process for me. So I didn't know if I was ever going to be able to get past that. And so I was like, well, I'll just work in the music industry. So I started doing a lot of like DIY booking in the Bay Area, like putting on shows and doing stuff like that. And then I actually worked for a booking company in college, and I was like, oh, this is what I'm going to do. And like pretty quickly I was like, oh man, I hate this. Like, I don't want to do this. Like, I like doing the DIY stuff because I like helping out my friends, but like working for a company and booking other people's bands, all I could think about was like, oh, I wish I was sending these emails for myself,
Yeah.
And so I think like the dream really became palpable for me once when I was like 20 and I realized I was like, you know what, I just want to put everything into this. And this is what I want to do, and who cares if I'm not the best songwriter or the best singer or the best guitarist. And so I do think sorry, that was a very long answer to a short question.
No,
I do think I did have dreams where I was like, maybe I'll have a record of my own someday, but I still even struggle now to believe I'm good enough. I think imposter syndrome is a real thing. And so in a way, I feel like having this record out and doing what I'm doing is kind of like healing the child that like didn't believe it was ever possible. Which is really corny, but
no, like everybody talks about like your inner child and stuff like that, and how it plays out in so many different like facets of your life that you don't even realize. So I think so many people,
the imposter syndrome doesn't go away. It's
but I think more people can relate to that than you realize. Like once you start talking about like, I struggled with this, or this is kind of where I feel vulnerable, people are like, oh my gosh, same here. So, and then you find that commonality. So I think it probably resonates with a lot more people.
Yeah. No, thanks for saying that. And I'm glad it can resonate with folks, because I think a lot of writing this record honestly was like healing my inner child and like getting into the music that I'm making, like really leaning into like 60s and 70s music and leaning into country music and like wearing cowboy boots, and all that has been for me like healing like this like little dream I had when I was younger to like be the like, 70s rock star or whatever. And like, and just it's funny. Like I look at photos of myself when I was younger, and I would always wear my mom's cowgirl hat from when she was a kid, and I just had no shame. Like I would just walk around with like a horse shirt on and my cowgirl hat. When you're a kid, you just like don't care and you're just yourself. And I'm like, I'm doing this for her. Doing it for her, because when I was in middle school and high school, I was too scared to be myself. I was too scared to be open about the things I loved. And, instead I tried to fit in, and I partied a bunch and did all that. And I feel like I've finally gotten to this place where I'm like, oh, like this is who I am. This is who I was when I was a kid, before I was like
you're accepting yourself.
Yeah. Right. And that's so healing. And I don't know, it's been really rad. So.
Well, as far as imposter syndrome goes, one thing that really stood out with me is your voice. You've got a very wide range, and one of the songs I was really listening to, like every song has a hook, and I think Bella at the Bar. I noticed you can start out and you dip down and you go back up to the melody, and it's such a cool that was the hook for the song. Just when the way you were shaping your words. On the chorus line, and that really stood out as far as this was a really good song, and it stands out, and you remember it gets in your head. And so I think some people, and I'm sure you felt the same way, is like, I don't know if what I'm singing is actually good. I don't know if I'm actually singing something that's in tune, because some people I
think I sound great when I sing, and then I hear myself back, and I'm like,
if I'm in the car, I sound awesome.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I'm like, I should make a record. People are going to buy it. And then I'm like, oh, no.
But some people actually, they go on stage and they really can't sing, and they don't have that feedback from people. And then there's people that really can sing, but they are so down on themselves that they'll never go up there on stage, or they'll never put themselves out there, because they're afraid that of the rejection, and that maybe they are wrong about how they feel. But I mean, that you do have the sound for it, and it's you got a really amazing voice as far as how you can shape your words, how you can carry the tune, and just the way you kind of you flow it with the sound of the music. It's pretty awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, and one of the things
she's like, keep talking.
Yeah,
keep telling me.
Yeah, I'll take it.
Yeah, I think we were talking about this. Like, there's someone else that does that, like Patsy Cline. She has that a similar where she can kind of go up and down an octave a lot in the sounds. I know it's a whole different genre than what you do, but man, if you ever did any Patsy Cline covers, you'd
I love
kill
Patsy. I often do Walking After Midnight at karaoke.
Yeah?
So, I love to sing Patsy. Well, thank you. Yeah, my voice is really my instrument, and I put a lot of work into it. So that means the world to hear all that. And I've based my singing off of singers from like the 50s and 60s for the most part, and kind of that like that kind of like vibrato sound, that kind of my favorite singer ever is Joan Baez, who's a folk singer, which is kind of funny because I feel like I'm taking her like very folk sound and like putting it into country. which I really like to do. And Linda Ronstadt actually really did that a lot too. She's another singer I listen to a lot. Took that kind of very folky vibrato, kind of almost like classical sound, but gave it that kind of country edge. And yeah, I've just like studied that so much. I take vocal lessons. Like I take my voice very, very seriously, and I'm glad it's coming through to people as sounding good because I've worked really, really hard on it.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I definitely did have lots of moments where I was like, am I a good enough singer? Like, am I, because there's people out there, like I have a pretty low voice for a woman. Like, some girls can freaking like they're sopranos, they can sing so high, and I've had to just find my niche in my kind of alto range, and I love it now. I did not always love it though.
Yeah, well, it puts a lot more emotion into the sound when you're able to dip down and go back up like that. I think it really helps the song as far as matching the lyrics and also your band behind you.
Thank you.
So your album that just came out, what was it, last week or 2 weeks ago?
Oh my God, I think almost 3 weeks ago.
Was that the 6th?
Yeah.
Is that when it came out?
6 was the show.
Okay.
3rd was when it came out. So
okay.
We're just burning through May right now.
May's like gone.
Yeah.
It's almost June now.
Yeah.
I don't even know what happened.
So how long did you have to wait for it before you actually had your hands on it?
I think when did I get the records? Man, it's been such a blur, but I think I got the records in like March or April, maybe the end of March. I think April. So I really just have kind of gotten them now. I've had like the masters and stuff for a long time. I've had the masters since like January.
Yeah.
So I've been able to listen to it, but yeah, definitely like picking up the record and being like, this is me. Like that was really, really surreal and really wild. So it's been so cool. Like, God, like I've sent like records all over the country, and I'm like, my God, like I can't believe people want to listen to this.
That's awesome.
So do you mail out the orders yourself when you get it? Do you really?
Oh yeah, I do everything myself. Like people always ask me if I have like a manager or anything. I'm like, absolutely
You're like
not.
me, I am the manager.
Yeah, like
nice to meet you.
Yeah, I've had people like I definitely like have people I like go to advice for, and like Jackalope Records are the ones who like funded these to be printed and stuff like that, which was amazing of them to do. And
where are they out of?
Pendleton, Oregon, because they do the Jackalope Jamboree too. That's how I met them. But other than that, like they did the logistics of getting the records made and stuff like that. But I shipped them all out myself, and everything else with the record, the press I've gotten, the playlisting and like the album art, all of that, like that's all work I've done. I didn't do the album art myself, but I like contacted the graphic designer, like everything. The amount of emails I've sent in the last 6 months. And my friends are probably getting sick of me saying, like, I just did emails all day, because that's all I do every day. And it's funny because I'm a very small artist. So I'm like, I can't even imagine how much work it is to be a bigger artist than me. And that's why a lot of them have managers. But, people kind of will sometimes assume that I paid for PR for the record, which I did not do. I just sent 3 million emails to press outlets being like, hi, listen to my record, please.
Yeah.
So
it's literally a labor of love.
It's just like a small business owner. You're everything, and then
literally
till you can hire someone to do something.
Exactly. Yeah, like I pay my bandmates, and I paid the people who took the photos and did the graphic design and the mixing, the mastering, and whatever. And then all of the footwork kind of in the background that no one sees really is like the emails and the this and the that, and like posting to Spotify and whatever, the website building, which is like, I'm so bad of technology. So that's the thing. Honestly, posting on Instagram is so much work, and TikTok, don't even get me started on that. Like it is so much work. And like I got laid off the day of my album release, so I don't have a job right now. But
no way.
Typically,
See, maybe that's like just things working out the way they're supposed to.
That's what I'm telling myself.
We'll sing it for you too. It's supposed to be that way. But that job was going to get in the way.
Yeah, right. And it was getting in the way. I've had like a myriad of day jobs. Music has never been my full-time thing, because I try to reinvest any music I make on my music back into my music, because it's so expensive. Like putting out a record is incredibly expensive. So any music or any money I've made from selling vinyl, other than like paying back Jackalope Records, I just put into a savings account and plan to spend on the next record or spend when I go on tour. So I have to work a day job to support myself, and then just reinvest the music I actually the money I make off my music. And so it's crazy. It's like working 2 jobs.
Well, that's awesome that you're still doing that and able to get through it. Hopefully, maybe on the next record, you might get some help from some friends. And
I thought you had like a social media manager or something
I'd say
like
your
that.
mom.
So I'm
I
impressed.
call mom up.
Yeah. Like, hey, mom, want to post for me? Can you send these emails?
I love doing it myself. Like, that's the funny thing. It's like, it's exhausting, but like,
You're a perfectionist too, aren't you?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
And
that helps.
yeah, it's just, I like doing it myself. And I am a control freak in terms of like my social media and booking and all of it. Like, I'm very picky. I'm very particular. So I don't really want to hand it off to anybody else at this point. Also, once you hand it off to someone, you're paying them, right? Like, if you have a social media manager, you got to pay them. If you have a booking agent, you got to pay them. If you have a manager, you got to pay them. Record label, you got to pay them back at some point. So I'm trying to figure out a way to do this where I'm not having to like outsource completely, because I'm not really making much money anyway. So it's like, I want to like make sure that if I'm making anything, it's just going straight back into it so I can like grow it and grow it. And I think like any small business, like the investment you make in the beginning is pretty terrifying, because you're just like having to like throw a bunch of money into something, and you're like,
have a lot of faith.
Yeah, it's all faith and hope. And I still am terrified every day. I'm like, am I just gonna end up having to like go back to school and figure out, a different career at some point? Because this, there is no guarantees in this industry at all. It's pretty daunting. But I love it so much that I don't care, and I'm going to continue to do it, and continue that investment, and just hope that one day it's going to pay off, and I am going to be able to live off of this. And I believe it, I do. But I have to like be a realist and be hopeful. It's like a very weird balance to strike. So,
well, you're only 1 album in, so
yeah,
you got some time.
Totally.
So, do you have some time to maybe play a couple songs for us from your album?
Yeah, totally. I would love to.
And your album is, what's it called again?
Oh, you're fine. It's kind of a mouthful.
Like, it's right there.
It's called Never Made Much of a Lover. It's a lyric from one of the songs on the record, Fault Lines. And it's a record about heartbreak. It's a record about getting sober. And it's a record about finding yourself. So hope you enjoy it.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate you coming in, and we can't wait to hear what you got to sing for us.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me. Love 'em, mommy, yes I do, but a man like that can't be true. I know you saw my daddy across that room, knowing he would be your groom. So why can't I be more like my mama? She was my age, she married my papa. And where I'll be in a year, I couldn't tell ya. She told me to trust my fate, and that love can wait. But there's a man I'd like to see. He's got eyes for me. Is it better being free? No, I won't roll that ice and sea. I love him, mommy, yes I do. So can you tell me, really follow through? So tell me, mommy, if you can, is this love I have a losing hand? So why can't I be more like my mama? Last man I loved ran out to Colorado. Now all I've got is this here silver dagger. She told me to trust my fate, and that love can wait. But there's a man I'd like to see. He's got eyes for me. Is it better being free? No, I won't roll the dice and see. I love him, Mommy, yes I do. So can you tell me, will he be true? Sylvian, desperate with tears, waiting on a man. Sylvian, bastard son, oh honey, what have you done? Even though it ain't true, oh, what did he do to you? Beauty of a time, a rose in the vine. In my face I see you staring back at me, and I'm fighting your agony. Sylvian, Sylvian, oh, she's desperate with tears, waiting on a man. Sylvian, middle of the night he left, cutting ties with the deepest knife. And you wanted to end your life, but the money kept you alive. And the booze and the pills, they intertwine. Jealous of your sun so bright. Sylvian, Sylvian, oh, she's desperate with tears, waiting on a man. Sylvian, and in the end it was the pills that killed her. Desperate, mangled, tangled and blue. And after so many years of pain, bearing it was something you just couldn't do. But I wish I could have known you, Sylvian, 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 oh, she's desperate with tears, waiting on a man. Sylvian,
smell of white gardenias. Don't you know the sun sets slow, California? And I was raised on the San Andreas, always bracing for the next shaking. No, I don't think I'll ever be a mother, and I've never made much of a lover. Ain't it a shame that a woman has to choose between her dreams and her loving due? It's never been much of a choice to me. No, I don't mind waking up alone, honestly. No, I don't yearn for company anymore, and I'm starting to understand what this pain is for. So I'm following these fault lines like they're white lines. Maybe these scars in the earth would lead me back home. Oh, like these scars in my skin, mapping out my future kin. And when these mountains reach the sea, I just hope I could fall in. So maybe I'll go out to Nebraska or some other place that I've never been, to find some lover I'll never kiss, just so I could have someone to miss. But at the end of each day, it's a long night late. And the only one I miss is the girl I was before the bottle touched my lips. And like these lines in the land, I'm following the best I can. Hoping one day I could redeem myself in the things I once felt. The room grows silent at her arrival. Light shining of every wavy tendril. She's got that look in her eye, like she won't be going home alone tonight. Oh, sweet Emily, don't take my man from me. 'Cause you're the belle of the bar, honky-tonk star, queen of the night, tavern's favorite bride, shy of 25, and you'll never see her cry. And she's drinking, oh, just to survive. Loyal man I once had, eyes only for me. Oh, but you won't believe he left me just to see. So how can I compare when I rarely catch a stare? To be a woman so fair, to dream I wouldn't dare. Oh, sweet Emily, do you know what you're doing to me? You're the belle of the bar, honky-tonk star, queen of the night, tavern's favorite bride, shy of 25, and you'll never see her cry. Oh, and she's drinking, oh, just to survive. Ooh.